On a quiet highway in Texas, in the early hours of the morning, a man made a phone call that would later become one of the most unsettling emergency calls ever recorded. His voice sounded frantic. His words were difficult to understand. He spoke about being chased. He mentioned people who were not supposed to be there. Minutes later, the call ended. When police arrived, they found his truck abandoned on the roadside. Brandon Lawson was nowhere to be found. More than a decade later, his disappearance remains unresolved, and the questions surrounding that night continue to trouble investigators, his family, and everyone who hears the call. Brandon Lawson was a 26-year-old father living in Texas. He worked in the oil fields, a physically demanding job that required long hours and frequent travel. Those who knew Brandon described him as hardworking and deeply devoted to his children. At the time of his disappearance, Brandon was going through a difficult period in his life. He had recently struggled with personal issues and relationship stress, but his family has consistently stated that he was not suicidal and had plans for the future. Nothing in the days leading up to his disappearance suggested that he intended to vanish or harm himself. On the night of August 8, 2013, Brandon left his home after an argument with his girlfriend. He got into his truck and began driving along a remote stretch of highway near Bronte, Texas. At some point during the drive, Brandon pulled over. The reason for this stop remains unclear. Shortly afterward, Brandon called his brother and told him that he was out of gas and needed help. Concerned by Brandon's behavior during the call, his brother agreed to help and stayed on the phone while driving toward Brandon's location. Before help could arrive, Brandon made another call, this time to emergency services. At approximately 12:38 a.m., Brandon Lawson called 911. From the beginning, the call was confusing. Brandon sounded frightened and disoriented. His speech was rushed and at times difficult to understand. He spoke about being chased. He mentioned people on both sides of the road. Brandon sounded frightened. The dispatcher struggled to make sense of what Brandon was saying and repeatedly asked him to clarify his location. Before the situation could be fully understood, the call abruptly disconnected. This recording would later become one of the most debated aspects of the case. Listeners have spent years replaying the audio, attempting to interpret Brandon's words and understand what he may have been experiencing in those final moments. Whatever Brandon saw or believed he saw that night, it caused him enough fear to call for emergency help, and then disappear completely. Police later located Brandon's truck parked along the highway near Bronte. The vehicle showed no signs of damage. There was no blood, no evidence of a struggle, and no clear indication of where Brandon had gone. Search teams were quickly deployed, combing the surrounding area, including nearby fields, brush, and riverbeds. Despite extensive efforts involving law enforcement, volunteers, and search dogs, no trace of Brandon was found. The absence of physical evidence only deepened the mystery. How could a man vanish so completely from an open roadside? Over the years, many theories have been suggested, but none have been confirmed. Some believe Brandon may have been disoriented or experiencing extreme stress that night. Others suggest he may have encountered danger after leaving his vehicle. What makes this case especially difficult is that there are pieces of information, but they do not fit together in a clear or satisfying way. 911 call suggests fear. The abandoned truck suggests sudden disappearance. Yet no definitive explanation has ever emerged. Today, Brandon Lawson's disappearance remains unsolved. His family continues to hope that new information will one day emerge. The case remains open and interest in it has not faded with time. Brandon's story is a reminder of how quickly ordinary moments can turn into lasting mysteries. Until new evidence comes forward, what truly happened to Brandon Lawson on that Texas highway remains unknown.